We're live. Inside the Labyrinth podcast, season 4, episode 3, episode 4. I don't know. We'll see where it takes us, Jay. But I'm super excited for today. Last episode we had Obese to Beast on, so
Yeah.
can't wait for you guys to check that out. John was a great dude, inspirational story. So that was a great episode. But today, before we introduce our guests, again, I just want to say thank you to all our listeners, thousands of downloads, and it's been a great journey with you, Jay. And, thanks again, brother, for being a part of this and being my partner and, my battle warrior through this labyrinth and getting things done. So as always, kick it over to my man, Jumpman Jay.
How's it going, guys? It's the real Jumpman Jay. Government name Jason Lacayo. Just want to thank you, Frankie, for allowing me to be a part of the process. We started this kind of on a whim, right? We had a friend in common, and he suggested that we get together because we kind of had the same mission statement. So, thank God for that because we're here now. So, very excited for today's guest. We have a friend in common, and when I told her that he was going to be on the show, she was stoked. And watching the show kind of made me like put a lot of things into perspective, man. I'm like, there's a lot of strong human beings out here, and you don't realize it until you watch a show like that where you see people do these acts of fitness that are kind of outside of their realm, so to speak. So I was very impressed with this guy on the show, and when we were able to lock it in, I kind of lost my mind a bit because I was like, another great guest that Frankie locked in again. So I'll kick it back to you, Frankie, so you can introduce our guest.
Awesome, Jay. I actually had the privilege to meet this guest last December at my first Strongman show ever, and really cool dude. And we were just talking and cracking jokes and everything, really strong and funny. So I'm going to introduce him as Andrew. I'm going to choke. I'm not going to say his last name. I'm going to let him do it. So Andrew, what's going on, buddy? Thanks for coming on the show.
It's all good. Andrew Hanus. But as you go through life, Andrew Hanus is what people will read. So, albeit, I'll take either or.
Hanus strong. That's right, buddy. So, go ahead, Frankie. Set it off.
What's going on, man? First, before we start going through your labyrinth, just want to see how you are today, man. Where your feet are right now at this present moment, and how's everything going for you?
Yeah, you know what? Today's actually been a pretty good day thus far. My feet are planted on the ground, thankfully. Working from home during a lot of the, pretty much since the beginning of this quarantine, and happy to be working, grateful to be working. But yeah, just taking it day by day, training day by day, counting my blessings day by day.
Yeah, man. That's a great way to live.
Yeah.
What was life like pre-quarantine?
Pre-quarantine.
Yeah, so just give us like a day in the life of Andrew Hanus pre-quarantine.
Well, I don't know. We'll probably get into it later, but I just moved up to the Philadelphia area last summer 2019, and
Okay.
so following my wife up here with her career moves, and actually locked down a job. Took a while, but locked down a job at community college here in November, December of 2019. Okay. So really only had a few months of, that work office life before quarantine kicked off and changed it all anyway. So, it was the standard 8 to 5. And then, you go to gym, and then you go home and you grub, and then you hang out with friends on the weekend, train on the weekend, your basics, and
Gotcha.
Then quarantine hit, and we stopped just going into work.
Oh man, that was just such like a weird time for I think a lot of people because I don't know if anyone was even prepared for that. I know a lot of places kind of had to adjust on the fly, only because we kind of heard it coming down the chain of command, right? It was like, all right, it's in this state, and then people were making the adjustments, and then eventually each state was hit with whatever restrictions in the beginning, and then shortly after they started to lift restrictions from, like I said, from state to state. I know for us, it was like it was kind of a madhouse because, you know, we were considered a hot zone, quote unquote. So the death toll was extremely high here. And it was, when I'm talking about you'd go outside and there was nobody outside.
Yeah.
Times Square, usually 24 hours a day, is packed. I remember walking through Times Square and it looked like the movie I Am Legend. There was like nobody out there. How was it like around where you were at?
Well,
Like, was it like desolate? Was it busy?
at first, you know, it was interesting because we were the first county that was shut down by the governor.
Okay.
I'm in Montgomery County, PA, and we were the first county shut down. And oddly enough, this is the county in the state that has the highest pharmaceutical companies per capita. So just the density of pharmaceutical companies, and you think about all the marketing and the salesmen who travel around the world. So I think we had a increase, or we had, at least off the get-go, we had a higher number of cases, which caused for concern, of course. And so I think that's why they shut us down first. But I mean, within the following week, Philadelphia County was shut. I mean, it was just kind of, you know, domino effect. And it really wasn't as crazy, minus the toilet paper, but you know, it wasn't that bad, because where I'm at, I'm on the edge of, I mean, it's suburbia. I'm on the edge of, you know, cornfields one direction and then city the other direction.
Oh, okay.
And so my wife, she works in public health too. And, you know, we just kind of hunkered down for the first 2 to 3 weeks, didn't really do much. And we got used to ordering, you know, groceries through your phone. I forget the name of the apps, but like that.
Yeah.
So we just persisted like that for a few weeks. And honestly, I got a garage gym, got everything I needed in there. So I'm like, all right, well, we don't really need to go anywhere. I mean, I think at one point I counted, it was like 48 days that we didn't put any gas in the car at all, because we didn't go anywhere.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's got to be a record for me.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I
48
lost
days,
count at
bro.
one point. Yeah. We're not driving nowhere to go. We just stayed home.
Wow.
So yeah.
Just
Save a lot of money.
I think the longest I ever went was like 5 days without putting gas in the car during that whole thing. 48 days
Wow.
got to be a record. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because
car stayed
dude,
parked.
we still had to go to work, so it was like.
Right. Yeah, with us working from home, it wasn't that bad. I got nervous. I'm like, man, I better go out and at least let the car run for a few minutes here and there.
Make sure it's still alive.
Yep.
Like, Andrew, come in, ride me. Don't forget about me.
Yeah.
Oh, that is crazy. Well, we're glad you made it. You know, you're here, you know, and
Yeah,
I
exactly.
saw the gym that you have. It's kick ass and you're able to train. And that's the thing. I know me and Jay, myself, we were able to train during it
That's
for
good.
the most part. So I felt, you know, mental health wise, for people that couldn't, it's just like terrible, man. It's like, you know, imagine not even going to the gym for 48 days and not going in your car for 48 days. It's like, what do you do, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's where, you know, you have to have sympathy, because even I have a lot of my peer competitors, you know, in strongman sport, and just, you know, my friends at, you know, here at the local gyms, who they don't have anything at home. You know, they're trying to get creative and find new ways. And a lot of them, you know, they're not touching barbells, they're not touching kettlebells, they're doing all body weight stuff. And it, you know, has an impact, especially if you're a competitor and have those goals. So it's like, you know, you got to find ways to get around it. And at the same time, having competed for so long in a variety of these fringe sports, I try to convey, like, you know, it's also a blessing to have this period of kind of retreat on your body, because it's helping, you know, your body normalize, your body to heal up, you to focus on other things that might be more important, like core or, you know, cardio health, like heart health, even if it is, you know, a different mental game.
Gotcha.
Exactly. Yeah. It's I like how you said that word, like retreat, you know, as in you're able to reevaluate everything, and you really get to see kind of what training is to you and what your life is to you, you know, and I'm really glad you brought that up. We're gonna jump back a few years. We're gonna jump back some years to how Andrew was in high school, where you grew up in high school. How was high school for you? Did you play any sports, and kind of the overall, your overall journey through high school?
Yeah. Youth sports was very interesting for me. Honestly, I played sports. In high school, I ran track. I was a sprinter and a jumper, not a high jumper, a long jumper, and ran football or played football. Since I was fast. It's funny because I used football to stay in shape for track, whereas a lot of athletes use track to stay in shape
Vice
for
versa.
football.
Yeah.
So, I was a sprinter, and that was just what I liked and what I enjoyed, but it never really got along with a lot of the coaching. Maybe I had an authority issue back when I was young. I think I definitely did. Way too many male figures in my life trying to tell me what I should be focused on, how I should be focused. And it just made it all very muddy, which is why I never really stuck with sports all the way through high school. So by my senior year, I had withdrawn from all sports, and wrestling I wasn't doing anymore. Track, even though I was great, I'd gone to state championships. I was like, I'm done with this. And football was just kind of like, it's a joke anyway. It's like, I'm not that good. Coaches don't really care. They just want you on special teams or defense when they need somebody fast to get down the field. So it's like, this underappreciation. I don't know. I just didn't feel like I was going to do anything after high school with the sports. So my senior year, I just focused on the one thing I enjoyed, which was art class. I think last year of high school, it was more than half a day I spent in the art room. That was it. So just kind of playing with my creative side. And, that was the year I started packing on some weight. I was pushing 180 when I graduated from high school. And then right thereafter, went into community college and started working full time I dropped out of community college and then, kept packing on the weight. And at one point, I had moved to Houston for a job. And actually when I was in Houston, my mom got sick. So my mom was living in Alabama at the time. I was growing up, I graduated from Ohio. And so my family, we moved around a lot when I was young, but my family's from Ohio. They all are in Ohio now, but we actually lived in a small town called Fort Payne, Alabama, for a little bit. I went to kindergarten in Fort Payne. When I graduated high school, my family and they took my little brother, they moved back down to Fort Payne for a bit. That's when my mom got sick. She had developed breast cancer, and she was at a very detrimental stage with that. So family moved back to Ohio. I left Houston, went back to Ohio as well. And that's where I was kind of like, what am I going to do with my life right now? I'm not in school. I don't have a full-time job. I step on the scale, and I think it was the most I ever was in my life was 212 pounds. I'll never forget seeing that. And I was just like mind blown. I was like, I'm 212 pounds. Like, wow. And you look in the mirror and you look at the pictures, and, I never had that. Even at the age of 20, I think I'm probably about 19, 20 at that point. Didn't really have that connection to exercise and nutrition, the education that a lot of, people start out the gates with. And so I kind of started to change the way I eat. And that was the first step, was like, all right, watch what you eat. Stop eating fast food. And that was step one. And about the same time, my buddy, he reached out to me. He said, hey, I'm probably going to join the Coast Guard or something like that. I'm going to go start talking to recruiters. And I don't know what it was in me that was like, let me go with you, because I don't want you just signing up. I love my friend. I'm like, man, I don't want you just signing your life away. And then, who knows what's going to happen. Well, needless to say, I went with him on 2 trips. And then by the 3rd trip, somehow I was signing my name too on this dotted line. I'm like, what just happened?
Wow.
So it was interesting. So at that moment, me and him had both signed up to join the Air Force, and we left first week of April in 2009 for boot camp.
Wow.
So yeah, so I'll pause there because I could rant. I could keep going, but
you guys do boot camp where in Texas?
Yeah, Lackland Air Force Base.
Lackland, right? Yeah. So my brother was at too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's kind of cool that you had the wherewithal to kind of be like, all right, let me get my life together. A lot of kids at that age kind of go either left or right. You know what I mean? You can make and you made a positive decision to get some structure in your life, because I kind of, from just listening, it seemed like that's what you were looking to get, with some structure, and just try to provide a future for yourself. That's not easy to do at 20 years old, man. Like, because I know where my mind was at 20, and at 20 years old, that's when I was starting to kind of say to myself, all right, listen, 21's right around the corner. I need to figure out what I'm going to do in my life. And I kind of was in the same situation. Had a situation at school, and then I ended up going to a community college, and then I was starting to kind of look around me and see, like, a lot of my friends were kind of doing the same stuff they were doing in high school, and I didn't want to fall into that like hole. So I kind of buckled down, and I started taking these civil service exams. And then my dad was in the military, so he was like, listen, take these he was in the military, but he also was in law enforcement. So he was like, listen, you got two options here. You can take these civil service exams, and you can actually take the ASVAB and try to put the wheels in motion and go to the military. And I was like, all right, cool, man. So that's what I started doing. So I started taking all these civil service exams. And then I remember going to a Navy recruiter. And I legit was like getting ready to sign, and NYPD had called me first. So kidding. I told myself I had it was like a 90-day window where as I knew there was an academy class going in. So I said, if they call me, then I'll go. If not, then I'll go to the military. And I got lucky because I got the call from NYPD to go in. So our stories kind of sound the same. Yeah. So it resonates with me a lot, because I kind of hear a lot of myself in you when you're telling that story, man.
Yeah, seeking that discipline, and man. Not inadvertently even, that you need it, and it's hard to identify it, especially at that younger age. But it's like little bit of a nudge in one direction can really determine the outcome of the next decade of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. As I have a lot of friends that did make that decision and ended up going down the the wrong path.
Likewise,
and, it's weird how like life puts things in front of you, and you don't even know, like you said, inadvertently, you make a decision that can impact things several years down the line. So I mean, what about you, Frankie?
I was just about to say, we talked about it on the last podcast, I think it was, or I forgot, it was this season, where I said, all these little decisions add up. If it's making a left out of your house or a right out of your house, or what time you show up to the gym, and all these little things that we do throughout the day, they start adding up from a day to a week to a month to a year. And then you look behind you like, wow, and then when shit goes down, you're like, oh, this is why I'm supposed to be right now, and this is where I am,
That's
and
right.
It's crazy. And when I got a question for you, Andrew, like the Air Force, was it one of those like, I'm just gonna do this, or did you look at all the branches, or you kind of just say, they called first, or this seems good, I'll just go with it?
So there was only one branch that was ruled out, and that was the Marines. And that was for respect to my mother. She said, just don't join the Marines. And I was like, okay. Especially at that time, my mom was sick and whatnot. So I'm like, all right. And as a matter of fact, when we walked into the recruiting office, it's, you have every service branch lined up down the hall, and each door leads to a different recruiter for that branch. And it just so happened Air Force was the first door on the right, and we walked right into the recruiters, and we didn't even feel a need to go across the hall or go down the hall to talk to the others, because we felt that, even discussing with, amongst each other, like, yeah, I think this sounds pretty good. It has what we need, benefit wise, you're going to get the same benefits across the board. Really, it's going to come down to, your career choices and what kind of career choice you want to make.
Yeah. Right. My dad was adamant about me not being a Marine. I mean, he was a Marine. He was like, listen, dude, he said, he said, you can join any branch, man. Just leave the Marines alone. And I was like, all right, Pop, no problem.
I love my devil dogs. Like those guys,
Listen,
they've gone to bat for me more times than once. So
I have a bunch of friends that went to the Marine Corps, and a lot of these guys were solid dudes. And just my dad was just like, I guess he didn't want that type of aggression in my life, because he pushed my brother to go to the Air Force.
Okay.
And my brother, you know, he was, you know, he got a lot of his schooling done when he was in the military. So, you know, I think the Air Force allotted him more time to do that. And my dad was saying, like, you know, if you go to the Marine Corps or something like that, they're not really going to allow you to get some of those things done, because he kind of knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to, you know, pretty much further my education in the military. So he was saying, like, dude, go this route. He's either Navy or Air Force.
And those two, they are huge advocates for extending your education. I mean, the promotion opportunities just for, you know, commissioning opportunities alone are I think more viable in Air Force and in Navy, just because that's, you know, a big focus. You are pushed so hard for education, specifically in Air Force, from my experience, that is the route if you want to continue to, you know, pursue a higher level of education, or if you want to get a commissioning. It's almost to the point where it's annoying. like if you aren't continuing your academic education in the Air Force, you're not hitting all your marks on your annual reports or your annual achievements. I don't even know what they call them. They're not EPRs anymore. But anyway.
Yeah, they changed the name. So it's great because some of our listeners are young men, and I people constantly reach out to me, and you know, they tell us about the show and so on. But it's good that you kind of touched on that, because I think a lot of people don't have a lot of insight to the military, right? So they think, hey, you join up, you go to basic training, and you get, you know, sent to some godforsaken country to start engaging in war. So it's kind of good to hear somebody from your aspect that basically got in there and is giving them insight to, hey, man, you can further your education, you can do these things. You know, it is a great option for you know, a young person to take to get some direction and to kind of secure their future a little bit, because the military benefits are super, because, you know, I come from a military family, so I'm part of a, you know, I basically was born into a military like bank. You know, I have Navy Federal and USAA. So
there you go.
I've had them since I'm 18, and I tell you this, man, like I've seen my brother and my father like purchase homes and you know, all through the military. You know, it's just it's a lot of people have a negative outlook on the military, because they think like, hey man, like you join the military and you just become this robot. But there's actually great benefits, and it's good to see somebody in your position talking about it, because, you know, me and Frankie can tell people all day, you know, law enforcement or military, but to hear somebody from your line say, all right, man, you know, I joined the military and, you know, it led to these great things in my life. It just kind of eases people's mind when they're talking about going to the military, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, you know, and that's like a really solid point to bring up too. You know, instilling that kind of the discipline especially for younger guys. You know, I've seen guys at the beginning of their military career, and they really need that structure and discipline in their life. And then you run into them again in 5 years, and you're like, you are not the same individual.
Same guy.
You are you have clearly matured well beyond your years just in that short time frame. And
yeah, man,
I mean, it's worth it. I feel like so many individuals would benefit if they just join the military, even if it was for a short contract, because of the structure and discipline that you're getting. The benefits are, I mean, amazing. Just the GI Bill itself.
The GI Bill itself.
The
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
To, you know, get the VA home loan opportunities.
That's huge.
But the big one, I was talking today. So I work at a community college, so we're always talking about different types of academic training and so forth and so on. But one of the big ones that they were talking about today was soft skill training. You know, how do we do soft skills in a college setting? And you can have all the academic courses you'd like on soft skill training, but you are not going to be able to get to the level that you want in, say, leadership proficiency or team building or negotiations if you don't have the practical experience. And the military builds soft skills like nobody's business. And that's what Google cares about. That's what Amazon, that's what all these big tech companies care about. And they're looking for individuals with all these strong soft skills associated with whatever experience they might be. Because you can learn the technical matter later. The soft skills it's hard. It's way too hard to teach that in an academic setting.
That is such a valid point, man. I'm happy you mentioned that. Yeah, man. A lot of kids kind of, they look at the military as like, I don't know if I want to do it. They have a negative outlook on it. And I just love when I run into people who have, great stories or great insight about the military, especially branches like, the Air Force. I have a friend of mine that went to the Coast Guard, and he loved it. He got sent to Antarctica, but he loved it.
Like, how cool is that?
Yeah, he was stationed in Antarctica, and he was like, yeah, that was an experience, and that's life experience. How many people do you know that you run into on a on a daily basis that's been to the have been to Antarctica? So it's like,
I only know one. That's how limited it is, That's so
exactly.
Cool. I would love to go.
Yeah, he loved it too. A lot of people were like, how the hell did you survive there? He's like, I loved it, dude.
So cool.
They don't even, Andrew, that definitely broke your record of not going in the car or not using a car for the 46 days or whatever.
Yeah, right.
In Antarctica.
Oh man.
It kind of reminds Jay, remember we had well, of course you do. We had Alan Thrall in season 1. And it was kind of like the same. I kind of getting the same feel where he was lost a little bit, just kind of like the direction on where to go. And he was in community college, and all of his friends are going to college, and he's just stuck at home, and he's just like, what the hell am I going to do with my life? And he did the exact same thing. And, you see how he turned out, a very successful gym and stuff. And, you're very successful too. So it's kind of like just that little extra bump of going on this path where, and again, you have, which is very sad and hard to say, you have a lot of guys that come out of the military and they're still kind of just, no direction, nowhere to go. You know what I mean? So it's really good to see, you, for example, and Alan, very positive, and where you guys kind of, took your life and everything. So my question was going to say, how was your overall, experience in the military? And when you first joined the Air Force, you weren't really training yet, like weights, because you said you were a little overweight, or you didn't start training yet, did you, right?
Man, my recruiter said, all right, we've got your name on paper. We got, we got your blood on, your blood, what do they call it? Your blood deal or whatever. Now basically what you need to do is you need to meet this criteria. You need to drop weight. You need to be able to hit these PT standards before, we can sign off. So, that was the first thing. It's like, all right, well, I guess I got to start running and working out in the gym. I went in. I don't really remember much now, but I do recall, I do go to Snap Fitness and I just be hitting everything. I don't know what I'm doing. Like no form, no technique, like no rep scheme, like just do stuff. And that was pretty much it. Ended up making the weight in the PT standards. I even tried out for the, my first career choice was SEER. So in the Air Force, that's survival, evasion, rescue, and escape. And to become a SEER instructor, you have to do a PASS test. And it basically consists of a swim and a regular PT test. I can't swim. So
wow.
When it came, I forget, I think it was just like 800-meter swim. I couldn't make the swim. So I had to go with my second career choice, which was security forces. So I was law enforcement in the military. And in the Air Force, it's really strange how security forces works, actually. So the Air Force doesn't have an infantry. They don't have a military police. Both of those career tracks are combined into one, which is security forces. So in the Army, for example, they have MPs and they have infantry. They're very separate careers. Security forces, when the Army Air Corps separated, I'm going to get it wrong, in the early 40s or the late 40s, and became the Air Force, Department of the Air Force. They, it was a bunch of Army individuals who really started the security forces program back then. And so it was a combination of infantry type of kind of infantry concentrated career path, plus the law enforcement side of it. And that's because there was a limitation on the number of individuals that the Air Force had, right? So it's like, all right, you have to do more with less people as a resource. And over time it's evolved. Now security forces includes, so you have, I can't think. So your basic law enforcement, your combat arms instructors, canine. So I was canine unit, which is, falls under law enforcement. They have your snipers are security forces. You have your missile guys, guys who are out in the middle of the country, stationed in missile fields. That's security forces. When we deploy, we're infantry units. So our tactical security elements, our TSEs, things like that, they're all security forces individuals. It goes on and on and on. And then we also do all the training for deployment. So even if you're security forces, or if you're going to be deploying in any kind of tactical environment, you're going through a training where you have instructors that are security forces members. We have things like our Raven units, our 820th unit in Georgia. All of these are these specialized units that all have different missions, and the missions reflect the bases. But in general, it's a very versatile career field, and depending on where you get stationed, depends on what you might specialize in. And so my first duty station was in North Carolina at Seymour Johnson, and if I hadn't gotten stationed there, I may have never become a canine handler. I might have gone somewhere else and found a different career path. Okay. I joined as security forces, got stationed in Seymour Johnson. And basically first day, I remember first day on the job, working night shift, brand new airman basic, I think I was airman first class by that point. Getting in guard mount, guy walks through the door and he's got a dog, and I'm like, what the hell is it? Why is there a dog in here? And come to talk to him afterwards, and he explains how it all works, and this wasn't explained to me at all in the recruiting or anything. And so it was just all new, and he's like, you should come down to the kennels sometime, and I'll show you around and show you what it's all about. And for the next year and a half that I was stationed there, in the midst of a deployment during that time frame, I went and I trained and helped and cleaned the kennels. So fed the dogs, cleaned their shit, and literally scooped the poop out. And then worked as a decoy. So you put the suit on, and basically you always need a decoy.
Oh, so you take the bite. Yeah. Wow.
Yep. And it gets annoying to have all the handlers do it all the time. So when you got a young airman walk in the door, you definitely put them in the bite suit.
Yeah.
And over time, it helps you learn too before you even make the decision to go to canine school. So there's a process of applying and getting approved for canine school, and then you actually go, and then you get certified, and then you get sent back to your duty station. But while I was at Seymour Johnson, I also I took the opportunity to do so many things. So I continued one class at a time. I continued my education one class at a time as I could. It was usually online because, in the midst of a deployment and some other trainings that send you around the country, there are just things that it makes it hard to do in person. So I also actually I'll start with my deployment. I got deployed in 2010. And in the middle of my deployment, this was kind of like a big thing that really pivoted my entire perspective on physical aptitude or physical ability. I got deployed as just standard security forces individual to do base security. It was very, very simple. And while I was deployed, and as I mentioned, my mom had been sick. She had breast cancer, and she'd been going through chemo treatments, but she had also been doing radiation treatments because the cancer had spread into her bones. And so, unfortunately, in the middle of that deployment, I got a phone call. Not even a phone call; it was like a Skype message that my mom's not doing that well, that you need to reach out. You might not have a lot of time left. And so, took that and ran to my commander's office the morning of, I'll never forget, barged right in. It was like 7 o'clock in the morning, barged right into a leadership meeting, all the officers around the table. And I said, I need you now. And thank goodness my commander was just, at that time, I'll never forget this guy. He was an amazing individual, really helped me do a lot of things. But he sent me home, and I got to spend the last about 2 weeks with my mom, which was great. And then after that, went right back to the deployment. So it was very interesting. As I learned after the fact, I probably should not have gone back to that deployed setting. And they probably should not have let me go back to that deployed setting, just being in a compromised mental state. You just lost your mother. Now we're, asking you to carry a weapon and, protect these assets. So it was very interesting that I got to go back, but I did nonetheless. And I think during that time, I had a lot of isolation where, I've got my friends, I've got my bunkmates, I've got my squad that I work with every day to talk to lean on as needed. But I found myself kind of reclusing myself and spending a lot of time alone, just thinking, trying to figure things out, and, found myself in the gym and didn't know what else to do with my time. Did my classes here on the side. And, it's something between that connection. And I don't know if it was like, finding that alternative outlet other than sulking and being unhappy and being miserable while deployed. I think that connection to the gym really turned itself into a therapy. And that's when I really started to appreciate what I was doing. And after the fact that I had gone back while I was there, that same commander was still there. He gave me an opportunity, because I think before I was a troublemaker, and I was already written up for a few things here and there before, I went home. But afterwards, I think he had maybe noticed a young individual who was in need of a little bit of guidance, who, if given the right opportunity, could make use of it. And so he put me on a training task force with, it was the Qatari Air Force, and, helped to train them and teach them a number of things. So shoot, move, communicate drills, corrections drills, like the list goes on. And so for a month, I was tasked on this training force. And that was the point in time when it all just kind of clicked. And I said, being able to be awesome at my job demands a physical level of confidence, not just, the ability to perform well, but, mentally is also one of those kind of things. So I feel like I'm rambling here at this point, so stop me if sorry.
No, dude. No, keep going.
So, I did that for a month, and about right as that ended, that's when our squad got sent back home, because, we completed our time. And so we went back home, and as soon as I got back home, I had an individual reach out because he had saw my EPR bullets, and he had been wanting to set up what was called an emergency services team, an EST team at Seymour Johnson, which is like I use this word very lightly. It's like a SWAT team. But he wanted to create one for response needs that were on base that could also augment off base if needed with local law enforcement. Because we had, everywhere you go, every base, every security forces unit has a good working relationship with the surrounding law enforcement. Okay. And so we kind of created this unit from scratch. I think it was like 8 of us to start. And even though I helped create the unit, I still had to try out and earn a spot. And so it just further thrust me into that physical level of, okay, how do you push yourself more than you did before? So that was every day changing things up, pushing the limits a little bit more. I found myself, I'm like, why am I running 5 miles? I don't know why I'm running 5 miles. And now I feel like I need to run 5 miles. Like weird things like that still zero structure as far, this is the end of 2010, 2011, you know, I still have zero structure in terms of actual training. I'm just training. I'm just going to the gym. I'm hitting random sets and reps, you know. You know, I might have a bench day, a leg day, a bicep day, you know, that kind of stuff where, you know, nowadays it's very different training wise. But so yeah, that kind of continued to push myself physically because now I had a very strong relationship to being physically fit to perform well in my job. And it wasn't, you know, it kind of continued to progress because now that I'm physically fit and I'm performing well, well, now I want to perform better than my peers. And so, you know, it's just that competitive mindset, and that, you know, it's a full circle. And so that helped a lot, I think. I ended up having a really bad appendicitis during the summer of 2011. And that was, I mean, it was so bad. I woke up in a hospital. So that it wasn't just that, oh, you have to have it removed. It was your appendix has ruptured and you're about to die. I got a scar.
Emergency surgery.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was gnarly. So I woke up in a hospital and I'm like, okay, great. Couldn't move for probably better half of like 3 weeks. Cause you know, they cut up in your abdominal because all the toxins have poured out or whatever. They go in with a vacuum and basically sucking out all this stuff that's around your organs. Yeah. So, I was out for, a good month. And the first thing I did before I even went back to work it was the 10-year anniversary of 9/11. And so one of the guys had arranged a ruck march that started in San Antonio and went all the way to ground zero. And they had a guide on that they passed off about roughly every 150 miles. One security forces unit would pass to the next one. And so that was the first thing I did for our unit. We marched from Seymour Johnson, roughly in North Carolina, up to somewhere in Virginia, 150-mile ruck march.
Oh,
and they're
wow.
just like, you just came off of surgery. Are you sure you can do this? I'm like, I got to do this. Who cares, And that was about the time when I was applying for canine school and no idea what to expect. I'd still been working with the guys, still been studying and whatnot, and finally got approval from my chief, and she was a canine handler. And I think that my tenacity in going out for that 150-mile ruck march showcased to her that, okay, he's got some grit. He could perform well as a canine handler. And so she signed off and I went to canine school, came back in 2012 as a canine handler. And that's when I got stationed in California, actually. So I moved from North Carolina to California and had a whole new kind of lifestyle out there. And okay, so as I transitioned from North Carolina to California, at my I forget what they call that period when you take leave and you're in transition. But anyways, so I took a couple of extra days and I did a bodybuilding show.
Oh, shit.
As I left North Carolina. A bodybuilding show, which I prepped for like 30 days. So I was not, in that peak performance stage that I should have been on the stage. And that's all right, because to me, it was my first time. It was an experience. We're learning. So I tried to cut my diet down, cut all these carbs out, cut all the fats out, tanned up. I showed up at this place not even knowing that I had to get, spray tanned. And they're like, yeah, you're going to get tanned, right? And I was like, do I have to? And they're like, absolutely. So I was like, oh, all right. Well, this is like, I was learning everything at the moment. Yeah. And so that was really interesting. And so when I left from North Carolina, I placed like 8th out of 12. So I guess not dead last. But I didn't exactly enjoy, I liked the posing and the physique aspect of it, but I didn't really enjoy the process of it. And probably if I had a coach, I would have a very different mindset on, reflecting back. It just didn't hit like that tactical performance that I like. Sets and reps are fun, but I like, performing for a different reason. So when I got to California, the first thing I did was, I typed in strongman gyms that were nearby, because I had been doing some strongman workouts in North Carolina with people, and nothing popped up, but a CrossFit gym that was right around the corner popped up. So I'm like, well, let me go see what they have there. Pulled in, and sure enough, they had a handful of different strongman equipment. They had stones and logs and whatnot. So I'm like, okay, I could train here. It's a CrossFit gym, doesn't matter. So that was my first CrossFit gym. I'll never forget CrossFit Solano. I walk in there, and they're in the middle of a WOD. There must be like 30 people in this class. And I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah, that's an intense situation to walk into.
Oh yeah. My first experience with CrossFit was deployed. They did a last minute, like on the pad, they had a CrossFit contest, and I had just eaten jambalaya. It did not end well. It did not end well.
Jambalaya all over the place.
Oh, it was. And they were laughing at me too. So when I was watching all these guys in here do CrossFit, I mean, everybody was just stellar shape. And I'm like, oh man, maybe this isn't the right place. Come to find out, I stuck it out and hung out, and I did some CrossFit competitions with them, ended up getting CrossFit certified. But I really used it. And I think the gym appreciated that I brought this power, I was also doing powerlifting. Sorry, I jump all over. But I was doing powerlifting competitions and strongman. And so I brought these two different types of fringe sports into their domain, and it was really useful for them. And so it's like, okay, well, now that you're a coach, you can teach strongman classes or powerlifting classes for people that are interested. And so, I started teaching and training people there on the weekly. And it was great. I was doing the programming for individuals that were interested in it. And that was kind of the start of my coaching. And at the same time, I was still getting coached. I had individuals who were training me and teaching me on how to become a better powerlifter and how to become a better strongman. And this was all 2012. So yeah, it was 2012. I did my first bodybuilding contest. I did my first powerlifting contest, and I did my first strongman contest. So it was a very busy year for me, but and all while moving to California. So it was huge in terms of like, okay, here's what I can do outside of my job with all of this fitness.
You're the typical definition of a hybrid, man.
You got, yeah.
Like what? Jack of all trades, man.
You've got to be to some degree with, especially with regard to what your career demands of you, Yeah. So, and, being a canine handler at this point in time, I had a different set of physical standards that I had on me. Not only am I carrying my gear, but I'm carrying my dog's gear now. And sometimes, hey, you got to carry your dog, right? Literally. Yeah. So, there's a whole nother type of physical demand that's placed on me that thrusted me even further into becoming, more, into that hybrid fitness, I guess, where CrossFit helped a lot, because you got to have that cardio strength. Like if you don't have that ability to, I mean, if you can't do, I'm so frustrated with the military's PT standards. So, run 1.5 miles, at least for the Air Force. The Army, it's 2 miles, do your push-ups and your sit-ups. And yeah, I know it's changing, but I feel like there's so much more that needs to be tested depending on your career. And so, yeah, Army's taking a good approach to their new standards. But, unless you take some ownership, you really, you can kind of let down team members, I feel like. Simply said, like, you can let down team members.
Yeah, me and Frankie talk about this a lot too. They should make it more, it should be like a job standardized test, not so much like like a Cooper where you're running 1.5 miles and you're doing the push-ups and sit-ups. You want to do some functional movement that is relatable to your job title, your job position. So, me and Frankie constantly talk about that, because that standardized testing doesn't really apply to what you do on a daily basis. So you would want more functionality, in your workouts or in your standardization of tests.
Right.
Because I'm a CrossFitter, but I came from like a background of like bodybuilding, but I did a lot of compound lifts. So I was one of those guys who came in and had a great baseline for strength. but my cardio was trash. So, you know, walking into a gym thinking you're in shape, you know, is one thing. And then you get, you know, thrown into the middle of a workout and, you know, I'm in the corner, you know, heaving my guts out because I didn't have the cardiovascular baseline. So,
Man, yeah. I bet you're the kind
CrossFit,
just like me. You're really good for like 3 to 4 minutes and then you burn
that's
out
it.
real quick.
That's it. Yeah. And in the beginning, that's how I was. It was like, you know, maybe a 4 to 5 minute window of max effort. And then after that, I would just fizzle out. So,
Yep.
you know, having that experience where I was, you know, in these metcons and I was kind of noticing that, hey, I'm not good in that like 10 to 12 minute window. Let's start to work on our, you know, cardio baseline. So
Right.
it helped me tremendously as a police officer, but in life too, you know, like just being able to, you know, I always say there's a lot of people with show muscles, but they don't have go muscles.
Boom.
And you want to be
Like
able to,
it.
you know, you want to look the part, and you also want to be, there you go, Frankie, flex on him,
That's
kid.
right.
You know, you want to be able to look the part, but also be functional, man. And I learned that through CrossFit. And then, you know, I had friends that were doing powerlifting. So I did a little bit of powerlifting, and then I met Frankie.
Yeah.
Frankie introduced me to Strongman, and Strongman is, I mean, so applicable to just daily stuff. You know, yeah, he reeled me in, man. He brought me. He's like, hey, man, come upstairs. He's like, you know, come up to my place. We'll have a, you know, we'll do a little bro session. You know, we started throwing down the log and, you know, sandbags, and he had me pick up a stone, which I was terrified. I thought it was gonna crush my toes, but you know, Frankie's a great coach, man, and you know, he kind of just walked me through it, and
Yeah, that's awesome.
I started. Yeah,
That's
it's
good.
just it's great that you mention that stuff, man, because I think a lot of people don't understand that you know, having a good repertoire, being versatile, being able to, you know, do the bodybuilding, do the powerlifting, do the strongman, and maybe dabble in a little CrossFit. You know, it won't hurt you, man. It's just it'll only make you better, you know.
Yeah. Agreed.
Just about to say,
Especially career-wise.
Yeah. Well, there's a few things I want to hit, definitely, especially what Andrew said. But since we're on this topic, yeah, I think the whole PT test is an absolute joke. Like, you know that meme when you start putting the clown makeup on and everything. Like, what, and for NYPD standards, like it's a mile and a half, and I think it's 14 minutes and like 21 seconds. Like, come on, really?
Yeah,
like,
it's the 50th percentile.
First of all, when are you ever going to run a mile and a half in full uniform on the street? All right. Like, think about it. Like, an intense job could be like a domestic on like the 3rd floor, right? Of an apartment building. So you're not going to take the elevator. You're going to, you know, get out of your patrol car, put it over the air that you're 84, that you arrived. You know, you're going to go open the door, and then you're going to run up the stairs, and then you're going to start doing, you know, your entry or whatever you have to do. Okay. So now look at that heart rate. That heart rate's probably like already at 140 beats per minute. You know, so there needs to be a lot more testing, like not as long, like 14 minutes, but a type of high intensity training interval where you're doing all these things. And then when you try to put cuffs on someone, that's like an all out strongman event right there, dude. You know what I mean? Like, that could be over a minute. And, you know, after one event, like it's funny because the conditioning stuff is, you know, you might be able to kill the first 2 events, but when you get to event like 3, 4, that's really where, you know, everything starts to build up, you know, and all, you know, your conditioning wise, your lactic acid, everything, man. Like, are you going to be able to push it 4 and 5? And like, that's the thing is, like, don't get me wrong, like, having a great mile and a mile and a half time is good, but there's a really big difference between going all out for 2 to 3 minutes compared to that mile and a half and those push-ups. So
guaranteed.
I don't know, you know, I'm just a guy who did it, like we all are.
No,
we're all
you're
guys
totally
who did
right.
it. So it's like, you know, and we, myself and Jay and probably you have all been in situations where we thanked our training, you know, because if we didn't train, not only on the street, but also how you hit it before, like you really hit something. First, I want to say I'm, you know, sorry for your loss with your mom and being so courageous and honest with your story, because it brought me, dude, back to my own personal life when you said that you went back to your base and, you know, I'm not a doctor or anything, but, you know, you were like some signs and symptoms of depression, you know, where you're talking about, I'm around my friends, I'm at work, and you can still feel so isolated. And that's a huge relation that people can relate, especially who's an addict, an alcoholic or a drug addict, where you can have all these people around you and you still just feel so alone. So, I look at everything as like a square where you have that support group, right? And you have your eating healthy. And unfortunately, if you have to take medication for a little bit, you do, but then you also have your fitness, and they all connect. You can't really do one without the other, but you really found yourself more, and you're able to grow when you started to hit the gym. And that was a key component where, having that support group is great, but moving and actually, I guess this is going to sound like very hippie-like, feeling the energy in the world around you. And, reminds me of Dragon Ball Z when they're in the hyperbolic time chamber and everything, and they're really just training and like becoming one.
Slows down.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
exactly.
100%,
And that's like such a huge key component where, I just, it upsets me because, and it doesn't have to be CrossFit, it doesn't have to be bodybuilding, it doesn't have to be powerlifting, strongman. It's just like you said, dude, you were going around just freaking moving around, like I could picture you in there, like doing some sets, like, jumping jacks or whatever, and not knowing what the hell you're doing, but it still worked for you. And people need to know, like, it doesn't have to be these big time fitness, realms. Like, it's just like the huge statistics that we always talk about is if you do any type of physical activity for 22 to 25 minutes a day, it can help fight depression up to 25%. That's huge, and then you add in all those other parts of the square, and that's slowly over time. So, I really,
100%.
Thank you for bringing that up, because that was such a huge component where people need to hear that. And especially if, you have a buddy or a friend or a family member where they think everything is, together, no one knows, no one, first of all, no one knows anything. No one knows anything about anybody. They don't read their mind. They don't go home at night with them. They don't, brush their teeth. Who knows? Maybe those people aren't even brushing their teeth. So you don't know what people, how they feel, who they are. Just because they post something on Instagram, an egogram, means like their life is good. A lot of it is a cover. A lot of it is a cover up and bullshit. Once I started taking responsibility and saying things and talking about my journey and everything, and realizing, I wasn't alone, that's where things started getting better, is talking about your faults and everything, not just trying to hide it and cope with it. So I'm really glad you brought that up.
Yeah, man.
It comes with maturity on that. And that's the problem. And I mean, I'm sure it's got to be like this, in civilian law enforcement side too, but like in the military, not just in security forces, but across the board, it is, talked about from day one. Doesn't matter who you're talking to, from, your supervisors or just coworkers, but it is like, if you have mental health issues, shut up, because you're going to lose, at least in security forces, you're going to lose your ability to carry a weapon. And if you lose your ability to carry a weapon for so long, you're no longer going to be able to be in security forces, which means you're going to be transitioned out, or you're going to be reclassed in a different career field. And it's going to look bad on your record and all this, blah, blah, blah. So all this stigma around mental health, when after the fact, like learning after the fact that, unfortunately, they're telling all these guys this and all the women this, right? So people are like not seeking help at all. And everywhere you turn, you're just like, oh, actually, mental health clinic is saying, is trying to encourage people to reach out. And you learn after the fact that, oh, well, now that I've gone to the VA, if I would have done X, Y, Z, I would be much better positioned now to deal with mental health issues. And it's so sad, because if I would have just not listened to some of the voices and actually sought help, I would have been a million times better off. And it sucks, especially, the things that we see in as law enforcement officers, like, it could be detrimental in itself, but then you tack on your own mental health issues, your own personal relationships, and all of that. And it gets to be bad. And I always use this reference, like so many times have I responded to suicides and suicide attempts. And it's terrible. And some of them have been friends, have been coworkers, not just people I don't know. And it's terrible to go in there and see it. But like, when you're that close to that, when you're close to suicide like that, and then you have your own personal problems, that relationship, that those two things start to meld together, and then it becomes even more of a challenge to not have those thoughts of your own personal choices, right? And so it's like you need mental health options as therapy even more so now because of what you have been exposed to. So yeah, I mean, and yeah, after the fact, even yeah, I could talk about that for a while. Mental health is just, we need to do so much more there.
I mean, it's funny you brought that up, because that whole like stigma, in law enforcement, that if you do mention that, you want to talk to somebody, or you could potentially lose your job, or be modified in some sense and lose a position. I think it's kind of changing now, just because of the last, like, I want to say 24 months. We've had a high rate of police suicide, so they're starting to pay attention to it now. And you're seeing more and more guys coming forward saying that they need to speak to somebody, which is a good thing, because I've been on 15 years. 15 years ago, you weren't hearing that at all.
Yeah.
So we're starting to see a little bit of a shift. And back to what Frankie was saying with movement, I always say this: movement is medicine. Not only is it going to help your mental health, it's also going to help your physical health. So for me, I know my day isn't right until I get a workout in. Or I'm not, I'm doing something to release those endorphins, to make sure, because I work evenings, I want to make sure I go into work on like an endorphin high, making sure that I come with a positive mindset, and I'm in a place of neutrality. Because if I come in with a chip on my shoulder, that's definitely going to affect the way I police and the way I deal with people. So I like to come in with some, some mental clarity, and make sure that I'm moving and that I'm releasing these endorphins, so that now when I come into work, I'm in a good mental space, and I also feel good physically. So I am 1000% prepared for what the day is going to bring me, because, especially now, we don't know what we're going to encounter.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you add in all the external stressors, right? You mentioned some of the like at-home stuff. And now when you turn on the TV or you pick up your phone, our timelines are filled with negative police rhetoric and, violent images, and, if you, depending on where you work, you see a lot of violence, and you see, society not at its best.
Right.
So that takes a toll on your mental health. And then you start to realize, like, if you talk to a cop from day 1 to day 5, or day 1 to year 5, they are such a different person than they were when they walked into that precinct or into that command, because now you're you're exposed to all this trauma, because that's what it is, right? And then you tend to become jaded, and like, you'll hear guys making it's weird, they have like if they make a joke about something, is if a normal person heard the joke, there's a little like morbidity to it. Yeah, they would lose their mind.
That's TMZ right there.
Yeah, it's like, but this is the things that you're exposed to and you're constantly seeing. So, I think that's a way of some people internalizing it. They make light of certain situations, and that's not healthy. You know what I mean?
No,
so
they're trying to cope unhealthy. Yeah, exactly.
That's coping
defense mechanism.
Yeah. So I always pay attention to, the verbiage that people use around me. And if I'm ever on a heavy job and it's something that we saw that was very traumatic, I asked dudes after the job, "Hey man, how you feeling? You okay? You need to talk about anything?" That culture didn't exist a decade ago. Guys were just like, "All right, kid," they pat you on the back and send you on your way.
Yeah.
So now that's starting to change. So I do see a little bit of it, but I'm glad you guys
those
mentioned
are the things that lead to bad habits.
Yes, exactly.
Poor choices and addictive choices.
Yeah, and then you end up, sitting at a bar instead of sitting down in a focus group talking about, what you saw today, or, and how that made you feel. Guys are downing beers, and
unfortunately,
putting themselves in a bad position.
They, makes it worse mentally, and then it, only compounds physically.
Physically, yeah, exactly. So it's it's a double whammy if you think about it,
Yep. Oh yeah.
Do you guys hear me okay on this?
A little bit. Sounded like a robot, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, that you sounded like Transformers is going on over there, kid.
Oh, because I put on the mic. Clear?
It's a little Decepticon-ish.
All right, we'll just go with the regular.
Go with the regular.
There.
That would have worked. before we wrap up, Andrew, I wanted to hear just kind of take us through, I guess, the Titan Games experience real quick on
Oh,
the type
sure.
of
I need
training
to
you're
hear
doing
all about it.
and
Oh,
kind of
man.
how
Oh,
it kind
man.
of just happened, because that was really
Yeah,
freaking
it
awesome.
just
It's awesome,
happened.
man. Yeah,
Shoot.
it's just like I woke up one day and here you are talking The Rock.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, man, I'll try to be real quick. So like we were living in Atlanta. I was going to school at Georgia Tech. My wife had moved over there. Man, skipped real quick. So got out of the military, continued into the Guard because I had met my now wife. So I continued to serve as a Guard member.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time frame, I finished my undergrad at Arizona State University. I moved to DC for a year. I got to actually work at the under the president at that time. So I was in the Office of Science and Technology Policy in the White House for the Obama administration. So I spent
Wow.
a year in DC, which was really unique. And during that year, I like to brag. I didn't touch a barbell for an entire year. Felt amazing.
Wow.
All I did was calisthenic workouts. I was running through the parks, things like that. So it was a nice break from, traditional types of training. I think it gave my body some time to heal too. But after that, you went to Atlanta and I proceeded to go to graduate school at Georgia Tech. And while I was there, I did what I did in California. I walked into the first CrossFit gym, the closest CrossFit gym, and I said, hey, I'm CrossFit certified, but I do Strongman. Can I bring in some equipment? Can I teach some classes? And they were all about it. And so for 3 years, I was down there at CrossFit Identity, in the back corner doing Strongman stuff and, doing classes 1 to 2 times a week for their athletes. And during that period, so they had some really awesome athletes there. And Brianna Evans, Brianna Evans, who's now Brianna Wallen, she was a regional CrossFit competitor.
Yep.
She's awesome. She's a badass.
Mm-hmm.
She tapped me on the shoulder. She said, hey, I've got to do this weird tryout for something, but I can't tell you what it is. Can you run me through some Strongman movements? That way I'm familiar with odd objects, type of lifts. And so we did it. And of course, she comes out and she tells me, she's like, okay, so I'm doing this thing. It's called the Titan Games and The Rock is hosting it. And so she went and she did her tryouts. She did great. And then she came back and she's like, oh yeah, you should try out for this. You should put your name on the list. And so all right, let me check this out. Mind you, this is in 2017, right before they do the airing in January of 2018. So I go on their website and I see it. I'm like, okay, let me submit my name. I put in some videos of me training. And that was that. Fast forward fall 2019, I've now moved up to the Philadelphia area and have just started working at this community college. And they reach out to me and they say, hey, you still interested? We're about to do season 2. I'm like, it's been 2 years. Hell yeah, I'm still interested.
Oh yeah, I'm all about it.
Yep. So, they did a bunch of questionnaires with me. They had me do this really long video on just who I am. They're like, we see you physically, but who are you inside? So I had to do this, this video kind of explaining my path and things like that. And they said, okay, you know what? You sound like a good person, genuine person. We're going to bring you out to LA for the trials, which they call the Titan Combine. Basically, it was a single day event where they had us go through I think 8 different types of physical tests, running, a deadlift, 40-meter sprint, different types of obstacle courses, some weird stuff like swinging from ropes and whatnot, fun things. And that was their opportunity to, 1, call BS if you're not physically fit, but 2, also seeing the individuals in the flesh. Are you the same on Instagram and media and all the videos as you are in person? What's your energy like? What's your personality like? How do you get along with others?
a lot of people, they're not the same person in person. If you look at their
Facts.
Instagram and you see him in person, it's like, whoa,
Facts.
who's that
Oh,
guy
man.
that's on my phone? Because it's not the guy I'm looking at.
Oh man, agreed.
Yeah, but
So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, you're good. They invited 60 of us out to LA for the combine. There were 30
60.
men, 30 women.
Okay.
And they only chose 18 men and 18 women to proceed on for the actual. And so about 10 days after the combine happened, they called back up and they said, hey, we're sorry to, inform you, this is like terrible part of our job. This guy, he was so funny, one of the producers, it's the worst part of my job, Andrew. I have to call everybody and do this, but you did make the show. And I was like, this guy, come to find out, he'd done this to every single one of us. It's like, thanks for making us anxious. So we did the filming in Atlanta. So it was like, great, I just left this city, I got to go back. But they brought us all down to Atlanta to compete, and men and women, and we were down there for about 3.5 weeks, 4 weeks maybe. And yeah, it was very, very interesting. Day one, it's like, all right, these are the wardrobes you're going to bring. This is, these are the days you're going to compete. When the days you aren't competing, you're going to be doing, different interviews, or you're going to be doing, they call B-roll walkthroughs. So you're doing pictures. Yep. And like, when you see us walking through like the stadium, like all these things happen at different points, and then they just stitch it all together. But then, then we got to do the competitions themselves, the individual challenges, the head-to-heads. And that was, it was exhilarating. It was a blast to kind of go up there and test out these different types of events that you'll never get to do anywhere else, because the engineering that goes behind them, they're huge events too. You couldn't even fit half of these, you probably couldn't fit in a gym. Yeah. So yeah, it was really cool. It was also really interesting to see how that's all done behind stage or behind the camera, because now I feel like I look at TV a lot differently than I used to. And appreciate it though. Yeah.
There was a part where I saw you guys working out in like a CrossFit gym down there. Now what, like, did they set up like, all right, you guys got to work out at certain times? Like what was that about?
Oh,
I noticed,
no.
I saw.
They didn't build in, they didn't build in any time for us to do training on our own. And people were still training. Like I was training for a strongman contest. People were training for the up and coming Wadapalooza event. So there was a lot going on. But no,
a whole lot of fitness.
Thankfully I had my connections in Atlanta. I've been to half the gyms in that city. And, I called up CrossFit Identity. I said, hey, do you mind if I bring the legends, Margot and Matt Chan and, Kelly Stone, bring all these friends, up here. And they're like, what are you guys doing all here? And I was, Titan Games. And so, I think, a few times a week, 10 to 15 of us, we trip up to CrossFit Identity and we'd work out there.
Yeah, I saw that. I thought that was pretty awesome, man.
Yeah, the film that you see us doing all the training actually in the gym, the actual B-roll filming, like, those are all fake weights and whatnot. And I'll laugh so hard. So they're like, what do you want to do for your B-roll? Do you want to like do jumping jacks or jump rope? Like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I can just squat or something. And they're like, okay, cool. So they're loading up these fake plates on the barbell.
Oh, like, no, man.
I was just laughing like, all right, cool. And they're like, 2 plates is good, right? I was like, I'm a strongman committer. Come on, like put like 5 plates on there. And they look at me and they're like, that thing. They're like, you can't squat 5 plates. And I was like, bro, are you kidding me? So awesome. I told them, I'm like, do the math. Like that's how much it would look like in real life. And they're like, we'll put 4 plates on there. 4 plates is believable. I'm like, okay. But then one of the girls they have, she's benching 3 plates. And I'm like, really?
just repping out 315.
Yeah. So it was really amusing. Everything was a fake weight. I've never seen it look so real though. It was interesting.
Hey man, it's part of the presentation,
That's all it's about. It's got to look.
Gotta make them look like Titans.
They came up to me and they got aerosol water and they're like spraying water on you. Like, you gotta look like you're sweating, man. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a joke.
Dude, that's priceless.
That's funny.
Man.
Yeah, it was good though.
It's priceless.
Yeah.
What was your favorite event?
My favorite event by far was the Herculean pool, which I lost. It was the best event because I think that was one where, like, going into it, I knew that they had that event in season 1. I'm like, oh, that would be something I would like to do. I'd like to try that particular event. So it's the one you run up to it, you're kind of on a wedge, and there's poles through either side. You pull the poles out, and then the last one is a kind of like a tug of war pole. My competitor is this badass long drive golfer guy. His name is Ryan Steenberg. And I mean, huge individual. His nickname is Razorback because he's so big.
Wow.
He, him and I went on head to head. That was our tiebreaker match. So I had won a match, he had won a match, and then this was to kind of see who would move forward. And I mean, we were up there. It's interesting because the clips that they show on television are only 3-4 minutes long at most. We were up there almost 15 minutes, just back and forth, tugging on this. And
holy crap,
that's crazy.
Watching it and looking at it, you're like, oh, like it doesn't seem like it would be that hard, but your grip starts to go. You can't breathe.
Yeah.
When you fall off, and me and him were both falling off more than they even showed. You go to climb back up this little, I mean, it's a very, very slight incline, but we couldn't even climb. I was like using my elbows to climb back up this ladder. Not even these little steps. So it was so amusing, but like that was the one where it's just like all out, head to head, like just get it done. And I mean, afterwards, like that feeling of just pure like emptiness because you have left it all out there. Like me and him, I think we probably were out there for like 30 minutes after the event because we were just so gassed from going. But it was awesome. It was awesome. Probably my favorite event. I actually had to do a fourth event because he had torn his bicep during the challenges. And so before I was like on my way home, the morning before or the night before my flight, which was in the morning, the producers called me back and he said, hey, like he might not be able to proceed, but he's going to try. Can you stay here on standby? And if anything, you'll take his place. And so I did stay there on standby, and I did the fourth event, which was like a 3-way tiebreaker hammer down event, which was like you hit the poles and they fall, then you climb up. So fortunately, I got to do 4 events, which is kind of nice. Would have liked to try that Mount Olympus full speed against good old Will. He's lucky. But did not get that opportunity. But yeah, it was an interesting event. It was surreal. I think the best thing about it, like, and I'm sure they're all saying the same things, like the best thing about the Titan Games was not the Titan Games. It was the people that were there. It was the competitors. And
that's what everybody says.
We have become so just cohesive. We talk, it doesn't stop. I bet you if I undisturb my phone right now, I've got 30 messages. Like it doesn't stop with the group communications, and we have, side offs and one-offs and whatnot. It's led to, some more of the athletes getting different types of sponsors and things like that.
Yeah.
Like, we're all helping each other in different ways, and we're all there for each other, especially through all these times, I think we've connected in the past already for a small reunion. There's another one coming up, in a month. Like we're making sure
you guys did like a lake house or something, right?
Yeah, we sure did.
That looked pretty fun. I was watching that via Instagram, and that looked like a good time.
It was. Really, I know they got another one coming up soon. I mean, there's so much that just we could take away from the relationships that were built, and I try to convey that directly to Dwayne, The Rock, and it's like, I appreciate the games and the opportunity to compete on television, but I don't think you realize what you created amongst these athletes. And that's the real value.
Yeah, the camaraderie and that fellowship. I mean,
oh yeah,
that's what sports is all about. And,
exactly.
I see like the growth since everybody's been off that show. Like everyone's been growing exponentially. So, I mean, it's great that you mentioned that, because I started to see like everybody's Instagram started to pick up some opportunities with sponsors and so on. So, being on that show has opened up several doors, and the fact that you guys still kind of keep in communication is great, because, that's how you keep that going. That's how you keep that fellowship pushing forward,
That's right. No, 100%, 100%.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's I was gonna ask you how The Rock was. That's you probably got that question all the time. Like, how was he as a person?
That's the number
But
one
probably,
question.
yeah, always.
That's the number one question. I mean, he was cool. I mean, he definitely carries a presence with him. I think other people give him more credit than I would. I mean, he's a nice guy. He's a humble guy. He's straightforward. He's not as big in person as he is on screen. I'll say that. But I mean, anybody's big when they stand next to Kevin Hart.
Yeah.
But you know, I mean, he carries a presence with him, but I think that presence is demanding of just who he is as a figure, you know. So he walks around with, you know, like the small little entourage of people that demand a presence. So it's like all the eyes are on him just because of who he is. But he's quite soft spoken, right? Like you can tell when he's talking off the cuff that he's very mindful about the things that he says and how he says them, because there's always somebody or something, you know, camera wise pointed at him. So he's very, very thoughtful in that regard. But yeah, I mean, he's just like us. He's just human at the end of the day, you know, and he's trying to make the best that he can by his own fans and whatnot. And he's trying to leave his legacy, his empire, so to speak. And he's doing a good job. I think that, you know, at the end of the day, I hate it when people like godify some of these celebrities. And it kind of bothers me because it gives them a platform to which they sometimes abuse. But I don't think that The Rock has done that, even though he might have that. All right, sure, people have godified, pedalized him, so to speak. He is very conscious about how he speaks and communicates and how he engages. So you know, you got to give him mad respect for that. I think Matt Chan said it once when we were in LA for the trial, the Titan Combine. We were at dinner the night after, and he's just like, I would not want to be that man, because the hustle that he has to keep up with, that he's created for himself, is just insane. You know, he never stops.
Yeah. He always has his hand.
It's like he lives multiple lives.
Yep.
Yeah, think about it. He just took on the XFL, so like that's a whole nother
what the hell?
Yeah, like you know, my man's doing blockbuster movies, you know, also doing the Titan games, and then you want to pick up the XFL. I mean, it's a lot of work.
I don't know what he was thinking with that. We're gonna see, but
we will see.
Yeah. So yeah, he was cool.
Awesome. You gonna do the question rundown, Frankie, or what?
Yeah, I just had my phone ringing. I didn't want to have four rings in the back. Yeah, I was gonna say first, Andrew. You know, thanks, man, for coming on the show and you know, everything you did and your service and being so humble. It's really, you know, motivational and inspiring, man. And definitely it's just the beginning, you know. So you have a really crazy and awesome journey ahead of you. But before we usually wrap up, we ask a few questions so our listeners get to know you more personal questions.
A little rapid fire.
So get ready, man. I think you're gonna be you're gonna be intrigued on these. Basic ones first. What's your favorite movie or two movies if you had to pick? Come to the top of your head.
Oh, what's my favorite movie? You know, I don't really have a favorite movie. I'd have to say one movie that I haven't watched in a long time that I really enjoy is The Majestic with Jim Carrey.
The Majestic? I'm gonna write that down. I haven't seen
Jim Carrey. It is I think a lot of people can relate to the messages that are in that story. And that was the first movie that I ever cried watching.
Okay.
Really?
Because there's just, and maybe it's, you know, just due to like the types of life experiences that I've had that, you know, I relate to, but The Majestic, definitely.
Okay, got you. Jim Carrey.
Otherwise, give me action.
All right.
It is a slow movie, but yeah. Anyways, what's next?
Second question, Frankie.
Got my phone ringing. I don't want to.
You're good.
All right, it stopped. There we go. Second question. Favorite. No, let's go with If you have one meal to eat for the rest of your life, every single day, healthy or unhealthy, what's it going to be?
Sushi.
Sushi.
Yep.
That's the first. Good. I like that. That's a good one.
Hands down.
Hands down.
What kind of rolls? Be a
It's
little
probably going to be
specific
some
here.
kind of spicy tuna, some yellowtail. I do like eel hand rolls, little unagi. I love that. Nothing
All
that's
right,
deep
yeah.
fried. No, if you're eating deep fried or cream cheese rolls, it's not sushi. Like,
It's not sushi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
sashimi,
That ain't
man.
real
Let's go.
sushi. Give me that
One,
raw fish.
One main compound move with an accessory to do every single day if you're able to with your recovery.
One
That's the
main
only-
compound move and an accessory every day.
Those are the only two choices you have. Yep.
The main compound move, can it be a variation? I mean, I would say any variation
Good,
of a squat. So, back squat with a barbell or a camber bar or a safety bar of some sort, or, belt squat, not a leg press, not a leg press. I'm going to be very clear, not a hack squat or a leg press, a bar.
Gotcha.
And then is it some kind of accessory? I would say, it's either going to be hanging leg raises, not toes to bar kind of style, but like legit nice slow hanging leg raise, or dragon flags.
Oh, man.
Bruce Lee.
Ooh,
Only
that is
because,
some extreme core right there, buddy.
Something to that degree, even like a rollout, an ab rollout would count. Okay, but
I like that.
The discipline and just focus that it takes to do dragon flags, and just to endure with some hanging leg raises. I mean, you got to hit core, and if you're gonna do it, you might as well just do it right.
I like those. I like those.
Yeah.
That's the first time someone's like core on here, Jay.
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to say. He's the first guy I mentioned
No
before.
kidding.
Yeah.
It's we're 20 of these now. 20 of it. If you had one person to meet, dead or alive, who would it be?
One person
to hang out with.
Teddy Roosevelt.
All right.
There's just something about him. He is just a badass. And I think if you could actually have a conversation with him, I'd be really curious. He's an individual who could persuade anyone for anything. So, learning and talking and just kind of, I think, especially in today's environment, those kind of skills, that would be really valuable. But also, I appreciate that he was an outdoorsman, and I love that.
He was blind in one eye.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only president to be blind in one eye. Yeah, man.
Yep.
That's just crazy.
He's a good one.
I actually found that out on a Snapple fact. I had it, and then I was like, I'm pretty sure it's Teddy Roosevelt, and I Googled it, and it worked.
Like
a Snapple fact, I knew that. Yeah. It was like,
They still make that drink?
Yeah, they still make it.
Oh man.
They went to plastic. Bottles. They no longer do glass.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's very much
time ago.
I haven't had Snapple in
I haven't had one in probably a decade, I think.
Man.
It's been a legit decade since I've had
stuff.
Yeah. Nice.
If you came to New York and me and Jay were like, yo, what up, man? And we unraveled this freaking giant machine and all of a sudden it was a time machine. If you have one area, one time frame to go to, as who you are now, where are you gonna go? It could be 10 years ago, it could be 100 years ago, it could be back at the start of time, anywhere. But you're going on who you are now.
I would say, oh man, that's kind of rough. It would be maybe 300 or so BC. Greece.
Wow.
Greece, Roman regions of the Mediterranean. Somewhere around there.
That's what I want to go.
Yeah.
I'm a big history buff, so it's like, they talk about demigods and things of that nature. I would love to see like Achilles, Hercules.
100%.
Like I would love to be around it. Like, this is the guy they said could kill 100 men with a single bow and arrow.
Yeah.
You don't look that big to me,
Yeah, exactly. That's what I want to see. I appreciate that time, and all of the stories and things that come from that time, and I think also the architecture that comes from that time period too. But imagine that was a time where in a place where it didn't matter where you were or when you were, there was war everywhere.
yeah.
And just to, I mean, imagine a field or, you know, an environment like that where it didn't matter where you tried to escape to, but, you know, and so every village, every town, every city had, you know, I don't know. It just seems like it would be a really interesting time and place to be.
That's
Culture
exactly where
wise
I'd want to
too.
go.
Exactly.
see.
Like, what kind of training were they doing?
Yeah,
You know, if
exactly.
they even were.
Like,
Yeah,
I want
that's
to
funny you
know
said that.
how Spartans used to train, or the Myrmidons, you know, like
Yep,
what was their training regimen looking like back in the day? You know what I mean?
exactly.
That always is like some of the world's greatest warriors.
Go
And I'm
back and
wondering, like,
just go sit on a ledge of Thermopylae and just watch from below or watch from above and
yeah,
see if the stories are
absolutely.
accurate.
Yep,
Leonidas and that
1000%.
one
I would love
spear.
that. Yep, I gotta see it. I gotta see it. That's exactly where I would
Yeah.
go.
And I was just watching
Awesome
Troy
answer.
yesterday. Actually, I was watching the part with Achilles, one of his battles. So it's funny you said that, and then Jay brought that
Yeah.
right up. So, and I
That's
got
awesome.
my tattoo is the Greek Minotaur. So that's what the
Oh,
big life story
nice.
around that. So,
That's awesome.
Andrew, it was an honor and, you know, great time to chat with you. And again, thank you for your service, man.
Yeah. Likewise. Thank you both.
Thank you, man. I had a blast, man. You were actually a really good guest, man. You had some great
Yeah.
insight, some great answers. I think our listeners are really going to enjoy this, man. So thank
That's
you.
awesome. I had a good time. It was a good therapy session for me too.
Yeah, I got it all
There
out.
you go, man. Don't let everyone know our secrets, all right?
Sounds good.
Everyone knows where to find me. As always, I'm Frank. You can find me at reps_4_responders. Big Man Jay, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram, The Real Jumpman J. Andrew, where can they find you?
I'm also on Instagram, Hanus_strength.
All right, my man. So
All
there
right,
you
guys.
have it. Inside the Labyrinth podcast, closing out another great guest. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for following, subscribe. You know, Frankie's got some shirts. We got some shirts coming out. So
Yes,
pick
sir.
those up. Links in the bio.
Andrew, be safe out there, man. Keep training hard. Love to see it, man. Oh, and congrats on that on the games you just did. I saw you got third place or whatever you said you weren't going to do it.
Oh
And you
yeah,
ended
the
up
Highland Games
competing.
last
Yeah.
weekend. Yep.
Awesome stuff, man.
Badass.
I do it all.
This guy's a magician.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Be safe. Have a good day. See ya.
All right,
You
brother.
too.
Have a good one.
Bye now.
Later.